Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Source Brewing Co. Equity Crowdfund webinar and podcast. My name is Mike Clarke. I'm the founder and CEO of Source Brewing Co. With me today is Mark Hubbard from OnMarket. OnMarket are the intermediaries responsible for listing our offer. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Source, past, present, and future. We'll cover off some of the key topics from our offer document, which is also available on our offer page at OnMarket. And then we'll go to a Q&A session where we'll be answering some of the questions submitted by you and other potential investors. So let's dig in, shall we? I'll start with a short history of Source. We launched beer into the market in 2016, so we're 8 years old now. It's almost like 100 in beer years. But while building that brewery in Marrickville, which we then opened in 2017. So we began brewing for ourselves in late 2017. At that time, it was the biggest brewery tap room in the inner west and one of the biggest in Sydney. And it remains today as the only brewery with a large dedicated beer garden. Lots of sun, lots of shade when you need it to. We spread our wings in 2018 and 2019, achieving national distribution via mostly independent bottle shops, although we also landed in Dan's, BWS and Liquorland in New South Wales. We have a solid range of core beers, covering the most popular styles from lagers to pale ale to hazies and IPAs. Each month we release a new special batch or a one-off seasonal beer, and that keeps the creative juices flowing here and helps to satisfy the craft beer market's never-ending thirst for new. The Marrickville tap room has really been one of the jewels in our crown. Slap bang in the middle of the Inner West Ale Trail, we benefit from a diverse mix of customers, both locals, regulars, and tourists from interstate and beyond. The combination of inner city warehouse feel, sitting amongst the tanks and sipping on a craft beer fresh from the source, pun intended, and the expansive sun-drenched beer garden has proven a winning formula for us and continues to stand out as a must-see stop on the Ale Trail. Our revenue comes from two main streams. First off, wholesale sales of kegs and cans to bars and bottle shops. Now the margins on that are reasonably slim, but the volumes keep us keep the production running and keep the efficiencies going in the brewery. The other main revenue stream is our Marrickville tap room, which benefits from a much higher share of margin. Additionally, although smaller piece of the pie, other revenue streams are takeaway and online sales, and we also do some contract brewing for other breweries. So looking back, the first few years were heaps of fun for us. The craft beer industry was booming. Unfortunately, a little thing called COVID had other plans for the country, the economy, and people's livelihoods, followed by the recovery that never happened, rampant inflation and a cost of living crisis. So it's fair to say the last 2-3 years have been challenging, not just for us, but for the industry as a whole. Bottle shops are seeing a reduction in discretionary spending on high value products like craft beer, and this in turn affects our wholesale sales to those bottle shops. So we put in a lot of work last year to put the business on a more stable footing and to set us up for future growth as the economy recovers and further into the future. In a nutshell, we have cut back on things that weren't working, like a non-performing venue in North Queensland. We've reduced some of our costs and our debts. We've exited a non-strategic shareholder, and we've invested in future-proofing our product line with the ready-to-serve cocktails, which is a drinks category forecast to outpace all other categories for the next 5 years or so. And finally, we've kicked off an equity crowdfund raise to further invest in the best performing or most promising parts of the business. Here we are today. So primarily those parts are the tap room and our early mover advantage in the cocktail space. So let's take a brief look at some promising numbers. Our Marrickville tap room continues to grow despite challenging economic times. Our revenue to date this financial year is up 15% on the same period last year, and that's really pleasing to see, and I think a testament to its popularity. Using some of the funds from this raise, we'll freshen up the tap room a bit. We'll invest in more events and aim to broaden its appeal and attract a wider audience. As a side note, also, I'm heavily involved in the Inner West Brewery Association. So that's a collection of Inner West breweries who together form the Inner West Ale Trail. And we recently won some grant funding from the New South Wales government So we're putting that towards marketing and promoting the ale trail to bring more visitors into the area. So that will benefit all of our venues. It's the rising tide lifts all boats theory. Our cocktail venture under the brand name of Twizzle is really primed for success. The ready-to-serve cocktail category is forecast to grow at 12.5% annually for the next 5 to 6 years, and that is huge. For our part, after soft launching Twizzle at the end of last year, we've seen really, really strong growth of 13% per month in the first 4 months. It's now in over 50 stores, including Dan Murphy's across Sydney and the ACT. So that's a great start, but with further investment in sales and marketing, Twizzle is really primed to take off as we enter spring and summer later this year. But it's really important to note we are not moving away from beer. We are not forgetting our roots. Beer is still the foundation of our business and at the moment is 90% of our revenue. So as an example, we just landed a deal to stock our Hazy Pale in Bottle Mart stores across New South Wales. And I think that demonstrates that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. The cocktail business is complementary and that will form an additional revenue stream. Now, awards. We don't enter our beers into every competition under the sun. We just don't feel the fees involved provide the best return on investment. However, we do enter some. And the ones we have entered, we've done pretty well, I think. So we've got 15 gold or silver medals to our name for the core range, and including a coveted champion trophy for the session IPA. So the champion trophy is the best of the golds, basically the best of the best. So delving deeper into things, they're in the offer document, so I won't spend too much time on the finer details, but quickly on the financials. 2.9 million in revenue last year. We're expecting to come in just under that this year, thanks mainly to the aforementioned drop in wholesale sales to bottle shops. As the economy recovers, when the RBA takes their foot off the brake really, this part of the business will recover, if not flourish. Our numbers only go back 3 years, which is slightly annoying, given that the best and most profitable years were the 3 years before that. Nevertheless, you can see that in FY22, which suffered from the 2021 COVID lockdowns, that year obviously fared the worst. But our net profit and net assets have improved significantly this financial year. That comes back to the hard but prudent decisions we made last year, our never give up attitude, and essentially we've set up the business for future profitability as we grow the cocktail and the taproom business, and as the wholesale business recovers from that cost of living crisis. It will end. It will get better, I promise. The tap room remains the most profitable part of the business, and that is why we're looking to open a second venue if we raise enough funds this month. We'll be strategic about this one, starting small, keeping the model simple, so as not to outlay too much cash. Essentially, we're looking for a small bar with an existing license. Maybe the current operators want to get out of their lease, or they want to move on, or they want to retire. So something really we can walk into, give it a bit of a touch up, put our signage up and start trading fairly quickly. Finally, last but not least, let's dig into some details about the offer. So we're offering ordinary shares in the company at $1 per share. We're looking to raise a minimum of $200,000 and a maximum of $800,000. There's a page in the offer document, or a couple of pages in fact, that go into some detail about what we plan to do with that money. But in a nutshell, it is improvements to the brewery to scale our cocktail production and improve efficiencies. A modest refresh of the Marrickville tap room, lick and polish, as they say. Some sales and marketing activities to further spread the message and increase our sales. The aforementioned second venue, and finally, a little bit of debt reduction against our loans. So that's it in a nutshell. Let's dig into the Q&A, shall we? Over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Mike. I want to say one thing before we start with some questions that we've got from our investors and from the crowd. Mike and I started talking about a share offer for Sauce about 18 months ago. And Mike said, oh, there's some strategic things I want to do with the business that I need to take care of before I think about that. And he gave me the laundry list that he's just presented here with the rebranding, restructuring debt, closing a non-performing or an underperforming venue, launching Twizzle, all these things. It's just really, really impressive that here we are now. You've ticked those all off your list. You've achieved all that. You put Sauce on a very firm footing going forward. And now you're asking your community to support you with investment so that you can go the next step. And I just want to applaud that effort.
Yeah, thanks.
I always think Yeah, somebody that goes out and does what they say they do. I value that. So well done,
Yeah.
Mike.
No, thanks. Yeah, and look, it was really important for us to, I guess, get the business in the right shape before we went out asking people to invest in the business. Last year, ironically, some other breweries raised money and raised quite a bit more. So market sentiment was a bit better, but for us, we really wanted to get that stable footing in place and set ourselves up for success before we started asking other people to trust us as well. So that's why we waited, and now we're ready to go.
Yes, yeah, you're investor ready. So as I
Yes.
say, so we've got some questions that come to us from the crowd through our web portal, which anybody can use to look at the details of the offer and invest. Um, what are you buying? Are they like regular shares? You did
Yeah.
address this a bit before, but
Yeah, so they're known as ordinary shares. So essentially, that's the most common type of share. If you invest in shares in the ASX, they're almost always ordinary shares. So you become what's known as an ordinary shareholder. You get the same rights and dividends to dividends and distributions and voting and everything else as all of the other shareholders in the business right now, which is essentially me. And will very soon be probably a couple of hundred more. So yes, ordinary shares.
yeah, you'll have company.
Yes.
And you talked about dividends. Do you have plans about paying dividends?
Yeah, look, nothing's guaranteed, obviously. The business needs to turn a profit, but it's really important to us that we do pay dividends when the business is successful. So, I know a lot of other businesses that have done crowd funds and breweries in particular. Some of their shareholders are a little bit sour because they haven't seen any dividends. So, yeah, it's really important to us that we do that. As I say, nothing's ever guaranteed, but as soon as we start, turning some healthy profits, it's important to us to share that with the people who've put their trust in us and put their money in us. So yes, that's
Yeah, that'd be
definitely
good.
in the plan.
That'll be historic in this industry, as you've
Yeah.
pointed out. Yes. So good luck. Many people want to know if they can use their self-managed super fund as the investment vehicle to own the shares in Sauce.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. So yes, you can use your super fund to invest in a crowd fund or in Source. The same rules around retail investors versus sophisticated investors applies. So if you have income or assets over a certain level, there's no limit on how much you can invest. If you're classed as a retail investor, then the most you can invest is 10K.
Exit opportunities. What are you doing about liquidity or listing
Yep.
or
Yep.
just creating markets for your investors?
Yeah, look, I guess that there are many potential exits in the future. Nothing is planned at this stage. So, we're not planning to raise on the ASX in the next 6 months or anything like that. We're not at a scale that justifies something like that, not at this point anyway. So there's a little bit of info on this in the offer doc, but very briefly, yes, an ASX listing is one potential should that happen in the future. Another option is a share buyback. We may decide that we're really profitable. We'd like to buy our shares back from our shareholders and allow them to earn a profit on those shares. Other options are selling your shares to other private investors. So it's not quite like an ASX listing where you can just dump them on the market and hopefully sell them fairly quickly. Private shares are considered a little bit more illiquid compared to public shares. That said, I've had shares in public companies before. Any small public company is very hard to sell your shares on those too. So it's not always guaranteed you can sell your shares in a public company either. The final thing that's a potential is there are a couple of share registries that are in the planning stages at the moment for a trading exchange for private shares. So as I say, it's planning stage at the moment. There's not a lot of detail around it, but it's kind of like a mini ASX for private companies to allow private shareholders to buy and sell shares in private companies like ourselves. So that's another thing that may happen within the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, we've seen some of our other customers facilitate trading between their new investors by um, helping create an informal market for that
Yeah,
between investors in the company.
a
So
secondary. Yeah.
yeah, the market, the industry, the crowdsource funding industry is maturing in that regard
Yeah.
to create avenues for added liquidity to the investors in these campaigns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides your becoming an investor and a regular shareholder, ordinary shareholder in the company, what other rewards and benefits are you offering?
What? There's a table in the offer document, but very brief, and it's on the page on market as well. But look, there's a range of benefits for both upfront and ongoing. And the more you invest, the greater the benefit. So initially, when you first join up, if you joined us in the early bird period, which has just gone past now, the first 3 days, you'll access the early bird reward, which is essentially a gift voucher you can use for online sales or using the takeaway, use for takeaways or using the tap room to have a beer on site. There'll be a merch pack which contains beer, merch, hats, t-shirts, that sort of stuff. And again, the more you've invested, the greater the value of that pack. There'll be a birthday reward as well. So every birthday we'll send you a gift voucher that you can use again online or in the tap room. And there are ongoing permanent discounts that you as a shareholder will get in our tap room and online. So again, depending on how much you've invested, you'll have a discount that you can use forever. You'll have a shareholder card that'll identify you as a shareholder and a VIP, and show that card at the tap room, or there'll be a code on it you can use on the online store, and you'll get discounts on everything you buy.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that's a feature of the industry through these difficult times that you've touched on is some breweries going into voluntary administration primarily because of their situation with the ATO and their excise tax.
Yeah.
What's the situation with sauce in the ATO?
Yeah, it is a big one. Happily, we've cleared our ATO debts. So, it's part of the restructure we did last year. We also put some money in the company and settled our ATO debts. So now we're essentially up to date with our ATO obligations, which is really, really it's a big weight off your shoulders, shall we say? Yes, you're right. There are a lot of breweries have gone to administration in the last 6 months or so, and a lot of others are struggling and at risk. And all of them pretty much name their ATO debt as the thing that tipped them over the edge. So, they've got some big excise debts hang over them from as far back as 2020, 2021, and they just can't keep up. So yes, we've de-risked the business to that extent.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's important and quite valuable. And finally, what are your shareholder communication plans? We know that some investors in some of these campaigns are disappointed with their level of engagement.
That's something we've heard loud and clear from some of the people looking to invest. Is they've invested in CSF companies before, and the first couple of months they get lots of love and lots of communications, and then they just kind of get forgotten. So it's really important for us that we keep that engagement going, for all time. You're an owner in the business. You need to know what's going on. It's not a matter of taking the money and then running. You are an important part of our business now, so it's important that we keep you up to date and we keep you engaged. There'll be an annual get-together party meeting, if you want to call it that, as well, at the breweries. So, and that's one of the other rewards that I didn't mention is, again, depending on how much you've invested, there'll be invites to the shareholder party every year. So that'll be an opportunity to get together, meet our team, talk to other shareholders, and have some free beer, basically. So,
that always goes down well, doesn't it?
Everybody loves free beer.
Yeah.
And cocktails.
Yes, and cocktails. Don't forget them. Well, those are the questions that we have through our portal in the crowd.
Sure.
Any investor out there that is interested in learning more, when you go through the portal and invest and bid on shares, you have the opportunity to ask those questions. But hopefully that's pretty comprehensive. And on behalf of myself and on Market Mike, we wish you and all your investors very well. I think you made a really strong foundation. We're really excited to see what you do in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody.